Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna Yisrael Underground Review, Season 2, Episode 2, Love Project, with a touch of Solonomics. You already know. This episode opens up with love, where this enslaved individual, this man, he taught himself how to read, to sound out the letters, and now he's teaching himself to write. And what does he write? He writes love, but he brings it to his love. He brings it to his enslaved partner, and she marvels at it for a moment. She's wondering, what is this that you have done? During a time where it is, in some places, it's death penalty or being sold or being whipped for learning how to read. Now, one has to take a look at why was ignorance applauded for the enslaved individual? Why did the oppressing class want you to remain ignorant? And is this something that is still employed upon us today? Is knowledge, if knowledge is really power and empowering, then we can understand why they didn't want them to read and write. And she took it as an affront. She was afraid of what it meant. She's like, I will receive your love as long as you don't show it. And that's kind of what the story with, you know, even with us today, that in this very complicated space, you couldn't really openly express your love for one another because it would mean means and a ways in which to manipulate you. So for instance, if you were a man and the master wanted you to do something and you didn't do it, then he would threaten to sell your children or the woman you loved. And so a lot of men as well as women began to bury this love deep within, and it became this maladaptive form and expression that even to this day is something for us to go back and look at and kind of and find out what really happened to it. Because, you know, to tell the truth, yeah, we are a bit dysfunctional in the way in which, and then we say, I love you, but I love you, but I love you. And you're like, yeah, clearly this is not love. You know, love should have brought you home last night. But anyway, slave mothers and their children, they had to make some of their same choices as their offspring. I was live tweeting last night. I was live tweeting throughout the show. And I was, speaking out about different scenes that during the Lev Project, I learned a little more. So because you begin to train your eye when you're watching, this is not just entertainment. You're seeing, you see that the staff and the actors and the writers actually did a lot of research to bring you what they're bringing to you. And so there was a scene where, and it's going to come up, where Ernestine's boyfriend impregnates a young slave girl. And he comes to Ernestine to tell her to give her an abortive herbal remedy to get rid of the child. And so you still have that today. You have men laying with women, impregnating them, and leaving the responsibility on them to get rid of the child. They'll even pay for the abortion. They will even take them down to Planned Parenthood. And again, leaning on what I said in the beginning about love or not love in slave context, I noticed that, and Ernestine is doing this as well, she's using sex and drugs to escape or numb her pain. And so we have to take a look at that, the fact that this is the same things that is happening today. We use these things to numb our reality because our soul is in pain, you know, and it doesn't make it go away. It actually exasperates the situation. And so this is Ernestine coming up here with the bruise on her face from last episode, if you could remember, and shout out to those who tuned in and as well as commented that he was feeling indifferent because he felt subjugated. He felt inferior because he was made to feel that way. And the only other person that he can turn around and oppress is the so-called black woman and the children, in this case, Ernestine. And so he says he doesn't want any rice. And my position last week was she was sitting there eating the rice with you. So it's kind of like in Fences when she was like, I've been standing here the whole time with you. But a lot of times we see that the masculine principle, he doesn't really take that into consideration. Oftentimes I've heard it said that women say, well, we came over here with you. We was on the boat with you. We experienced the thing with you. But oftentimes when he's projecting his pain and his indifference, he's kind of like saying, well, he's here all by himself and she has it a little better off. We were reading the Black Women Manifesto yesterday, and this conversation came up as well. So in this case, Ernestine is eating the rice with him. He doesn't like her response that you don't have to eat it because it is a choice, and he slaps her. Now in this episode, he's all telling her that he loves her. What I liked about the end of this conversation is that when the episode was finished, they went into domestic violence, which is huge in our community. Domestic violence awareness comes in October, but we should always be aware of domestic violence and the signs and the things that lead to the pressure on people that have a tendency to be violent, and their triggers, and necessarily to be able to look for these red flags ahead of time and not get into these situations, because some of us are codependent. Some of us are inclined towards being attracted to abusive people. This is why I say Solonomics in this, because if we want to talk about the root of a lot of the issues that persist in our community today, this is why I think Lev Project and Solonomics and even Underground that beautifully is displaying for us something that we can pinpoint, and you can say, aha, I can see how this can develop into what we're experiencing today, and that will give us a better handle on how to look and work on it and heal it going forward. So as I continued to watch the show, what came to me was the ugly, inconvenient truth shall set you free. And this thought process that people say, truth shall set you free, but a lot of times we're not prepared that the truth is not going to necessarily be what we want to see. It doesn't come with makeup. It doesn't come with lipo. It doesn't come with Botox or injections or the projections that we wanted to see it. It's ugly. It's inconvenient. You're wondering what you're doing here. It's the uninvited guest. And so in this abortion scene where the young woman is struggling with the fact that the man doesn't want it, but, does she want the child, and does she listen to him? And it was just an escape. It was just one time, as she said. It came to my mind that some women are still forced to bear the responsibility, pain, guilt, and shame of unwanted pregnancy. They are two people coming together for whatever reason. Some may say lust, some may say they're burning, some may say forcibly, and they're coming together, and one person or the other is making the decision that's going to affect the whole. And in this space of the woman carrying the seed, the woman nurturing, the woman bleeding, the woman feeling pain, you see this today. I did an interview some time ago with Reverend Childress, who's at the front line of Black abortion in the community. Again, another ugly, inconvenient truth. I know Noah's on the screen right now, but I wanted to get this thought out. And I was watching a documentary one time and he did Black genocide, by the way, so go ahead and check out that documentary. He participated in that. I was watching a documentary where a lot of melanated women have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 abortions. So a lot of times, if you look at it, and I took some time to look at the emotional effects, the mental effects, and the physical after effects of abortion. It's not something that necessarily leaves you. There is a numbing in the soul. There is a guilt. There is sometimes depression. So yes, you may have gotten rid of the physical child, but the remnants follows you. And so Ernestine is telling her, well, I kept my children, but she's seeing her dead. What's interesting is that after that conversation that she spoke to the young lady, and the lady said, you know what, she's going to keep the child, the man still forcibly made her, forced down her throat to abort the child. And that's as it relates to, I'm not the daddy, or I don't want to take responsibility. He'll pull them down to Planned Parenthood. He will, I'll give you the money. And also I've heard this in my own, close to my own personal space, that these men will actually say, you know what, if you go ahead and do it, and if you don't get rid of this child, then you're on your own. So these are the things that we need to talk about. We're looking at this, and hopefully we're looking at this as a springboard, as a space to enter into the conversation. Don't just let this series pass as entertainment. It's a springboard. It's a jump off point to begin to have these really tough discussions. This is Noah. He's still on the run. He's still trying to get back to, again, this love that you cannot necessarily express, but it's what's burning deep inside. He's trying to get back to Rosalie. He loves her, but he's been captured. They had a failed attempt to get out. And I just want to say, he had this one metal piece that he held on to be able to pick himself free, which is very interesting, very very interesting. And he's also playing the fool. Also, everybody plays the fool. Sometimes he's playing the fool. To act as though he doesn't know what's going on. This is some tweets that I did. I think they must be out of order. I said that John's wife, the one who died in the last episode, to me something is smelling fishy, because again, John was the one who was at the forefront of this conversation that, we have to do something, and she's going along with him. If you remember before, she buckled the last time when she actually slept with her past suitor in order to divert his attentions, if you remember that. So she might have an ability to flip. So now they're showing her all of the inner workings, but you gotta watch her. You gotta watch her. I'm watching her, because she might, because of the pressure and the grief of no one coming to the aid of her husband, who was doing something that she thought was a noble cause, she might slip to save her life. I'm not sure. I'm just saying I'm watching her. And lastly, 30 and 9 lashes is something that is pervasive throughout a lot of the narratives. 30 and 9 lashes is like the maximum minimum, kind of. They would say 30 and 9, 30 and 9. They will give you. So the butler, the enslaved butler who came in and was, wondering at why 30 and 9, this was the maximum minimum. And I remember when I'm reading a lot of these narratives, I'm like, wow, they would say 30 and 9. So it was kind of like a slang around the plantation. If you came in and you didn't have enough cotton, 30 and 9. If you, went out on a pass and you didn't come back in time, or you sassed the master or the missus, 30 and 9. You know what I'm saying? So this was kind of like the maximum minimum of that time, if you were wondering what 30 and 9 is. And I implore you, go ahead and read, bring some of your research to this conversation, and so that we can begin to enlighten ourselves as well as our children and those to come about this space and time in history. So with that said, my name is Amuni Israel. This has been the Lev Project, Solonomics 101. Talk to you soon. One.